So I'm sitting in this restaurant with my friend John, and I asked the waiter if he could bring some mustard. And then a few minutes later, the waiter comes back and he gives us a basket of bread and he gives the neighbors the mustard. And then as I'm going for the mustard, I realize this is not it. So I look on the side and I notice that they have my mustard and they're just about to ask the waiter for their bread. And I say, I have your bread. And we start this whole conversation. So do you like it spicy? Do you not like it spicy? That bread is very good here. It's actually very crispy. You should order some bread. Would you like to taste it? Well, do you want to taste it? And we just enter into this wonderful little small talk. And then when they leave, they tell us, here, please have the last piece of bread. We didn't touch it. You will enjoy it, And I'm thinking, wow, it's been so long that I didn't turn my head down when I was looking and walking past a stranger, that I actually even sought to communicate with them. And then a few days later, I'm going with my friend Ida to Little Park, this new public park in New York City. And we realized at the entrance that it's completely sold out and that it's a 2-week wait, etc. And I just say to the person at a ticket office, I say, well, and what happens if there are no shows? And she says, well, sometimes people have an extra ticket. And I suddenly stand there and I go, anybody extra ticket? Anybody extra ticket? Like I used to do, when I would just stand there and try to get into any show, any performance, any play. And then we get one. And then my friend goes, anybody an extra ticket for my girlfriend? And then we get a ticket from these people. They have an extra one. We start walking along with them, when did you reserve? How long did it take? Where are you from? What did it take to come here? And we just have this 3-4 minute back and forth, beautiful banter. And I'm just, my whole chest is opening up talking to these people. And then my friend John, who I was at a restaurant with, tells me that during this past year, he actually joined a co-op nearby so that he would be able to talk to strangers by, administering the masks, delivering the food, just to stay in touch with people. He volunteered twice a week at a food co-op. So this is to say that today's workshop is all about small talk, and especially about how small talk is a bridge to others. But first, hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for Letters from Esther Live, my monthly workshop series that helps you reflect, act, and develop greater confidence and relational intelligence in all of your relationships. The series happens monthly on YouTube and on Facebook. And for more Letters from Esther, visit estherperel.com/blog. I invite you to join me every month here on YouTube or on Facebook and discuss the newsletter live. So you get to read it, then we get to talk about it. But before we start, a few things. Consider inviting somebody to join us here. Reach out to someone and just let them come right away. If you think that this is a subject that matters, how to connect, how to reconnect, how to engage with people, how to master a little bit more that art of small talk. And of course, as always, I encourage you to take notes, either pen and paper on a sheet of paper, either a notebook, but write down what you think about, what comes up for you. You'll have loads of fantastic conversations that you can have with people afterwards. And if you like what you learned today, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't done so yet, just go ahead. You can find the buttons for that below this video. This month, I've been focusing on small talk. Small talk has been my theme on the blog, across all my channels, on social media, on the newsletter, and here with you today. But as always, when I use a term, I like to define it first, and kind of my definition, or the definition that I have accumulated through conversations and through reading and research. What is small talk? What qualifies as small talk? Here are a few. It can be a quick conversation with a stranger, low stakes, somebody that is standing in line, like this morning when I went to get fresh bread and I was at this new bakery and I just asked the person in front of me, what do you get? Have you gotten this before? Do you have a recommendation here? The way we gather information in a type of urban anthropology. Talking to the cab driver. I have learned so much about geopolitics from riding cabs in New York City, but this is true worldwide. I would say that the amount of people they come in touch with, way more than I will ever meet in my office. And that is tremendous knowledge and tremendous source of information. And then there is just catching up on what are the new bars. When I meet a coworker on Monday morning, I especially like to ask something about the weekend. Where did you go? What did you do? Who did you see? I always get ideas, asking a manager for help with a project, or even spotting a lovely person across the room and then approaching them for the very first time. Small talk doesn't need talk. A gaze, a smile, a wink, all of that is part of how we establish those initial connections. It's spontaneous. Small talk is unprompted. It's improvisational curiosity, and it often can establish an instant commonality. Small talk can also be the first step to building a deep, meaningful connection to another. I happen to like small talk, and I know not everybody does, but it has really led to some of my closest friendship. Talking on an airplane with someone who was reading one French newspaper when I was reading the other, and it became a conversation about reading Le Monde versus reading Libération. And here we are 26 years later, really still friends. Or sitting in a cafe, and people hear my accent, but I hear theirs too. And we start a conversation, and when did you come, and how did you arrive here, and what brought you, and where do you live, and which neighborhood? And, the commonality of being a newcomer, even if it's a newcomer of decades, but somebody who once arrived like that from afar, And small talk, it used to be a major part of our life before the pandemic. And I know that while many of us are getting back into the world at this moment, we are experiencing a kind of social atrophy. We need to re-strengthen our social muscles. And that doesn't just come from nowhere. It happens in small increments, in micro conversations. Personally, I don't think I've been so aware of those tiny calculations, those droplets of social interactions with people that I don't know. Like, I don't think I would have noticed that scene in the restaurant between the mustard and the bread. Just, I would have just kind of done it probably, but not paid attention to how unusual it was, to how long it had been since I had done that. Same thing with the tickets at the little park there. And, I think that small talk at this point is not even just reserved for new people. It can even be people that I know. But despite the occasional awkward silence of fumbling words, I have had many beautiful interactions with strangers recently that have shown me how important small talk is. And I would say small talk suffers from a definitional disadvantage. It is a term that elicits a lot of negative reactions sometimes in us, that it's superficial, that it's talking to say nothing, that it doesn't lead to anything. And I want to invite us to think a little bit differently, we asked you on Instagram, what has been your best interaction with a stranger recently? And I have to tell you, you shared such beautiful stories. So I selected just a few to give you a sense, because when people experience it and it's a good experience, they get it. And you got it, So when my dog of 15 years passed away and I was devastated and crying so much at the veterinary clinic, and a total stranger came up to me and cuddled me and held me whilst I cried, it was everything I needed at that time. And I'm so grateful for her that in that moment she was there for me. And I never even got to ask her name. The grocer who told me that it was a fine day to be alive. And I agreed. He winked at me and told me to remember it. And I needed that reminder today as always. And someone stopped me on a hike this morning while I was in a conversation with a friend about being trust with ourselves, to tell me that they'd been eavesdropping and that everything I was sharing resonated with them deeply, and that they felt like I felt like it was a message, and they felt like it was a message that they needed to hear for themselves as well. I mean, all these situations, a complete stranger that complimented my yellow top and told me how vibrant it looked, and it put a spring in my step that day. Or allowing a mom to hold my hand at the end of a shaky plane ride. Or twice a week, I was approached this week by a stranger who just wanted to tell me how much they loved the novel that I was reading. Oh, that's a classic situation. And when you read in the phone, nobody really knows what you're reading. Whereas a book used to be the cover of a book used to be such an opener of conversations. Taking pictures for a couple that just got engaged on the Little Bridge on a hike today when it was my own 8th wedding anniversary. Or a friendly and amusing exchange with a wrong number that called me. Remember, before we had caller ID, and we knew everything in advance when we could still be surprised? Started a new job. I love this one. Shared that I was nervous on my first day. New colleague said with a welcoming smile and gesture, "Hey, well, you're here and you got this. And by the way, today is my 7th day. So we're in this together." Beautiful one. Or playing cards with the man at my grandmother's aged care home. It's also really beautiful. A dog came up to me and let me pet it for a good 5 minutes. So I would love to hear from you as you hear this conversation. What are some of the most unusual, beautiful, moving experiences, encounters with strangers that you have had recently? Just pop them in the chat box. Let me see what comes up for you, and I will definitely share them with all of us. Some of us love small talk, and some of us cringe at the idea of it. But here are some things that I personally love about small talk. So I was trying to really think for myself, what is it for me? Why do I enjoy this? A lot of the things that were just told about how a beautiful comment can just put a smile on your face and put a spring in your step, or the book cover, I've experienced those as well. I think many of us may have. But what I would say as well is that time and again, small talk has expanded my perspective. I actually learn a lot that was unprompted, that I didn't see coming. Often it is, when it's positive small talk, it is a smile on my face. Small talk has sometimes been one of the best referral service, be it an acupuncturist or a pediatrician or a dentist or a masseuse. I mean, it's like it's a sharing of a Rolodex. Small talk is sometimes about illness, and the beginning of it is, you've had this too, and suddenly you get a whole, recommendation for where to go and who can be helpful just from, I have a Band-Aid here and you have a Band-Aid here kind of thing. Small talk has been the beginning of lifelong friendships for me. But more importantly, maybe even, is small talk has often flipped my biases. I have a first impression. I look at someone, I think certain things, and then when they start to talk, I was completely wrong. Wrong on where they're from, wrong on what they do, wrong on what interests them, wrong, and often biased wrong. So I'm going to own this, Small talk is platonic flirting. With an unknown, with the unexpected, with happenstance, with improvisation. It's that mystery, that thing that's right around the corner. And for that, small talk becomes an element of eroticism, that elixir of aliveness and spontaneity that makes life so rich. A great conversation with an outsider is confirmation that you never know what positive experiences life will put in front of you. That's just a few of the things that I was thinking about. You and the other person, we could have passed just straight by each other. But we chose to engage. And sometimes it's not us engaging, sometimes it's the puppies, sometimes it's the children. But by engaging, life has suddenly gone down a different path. And now, I like surprise, those surprises. Not everybody does. And I understand that too. You know, I like that my original judgments are sometimes proven wrong. I like the stand corrected kind of thing. Like I thought I knew, but I don't know so much as I think I do. I thought I was going to go to the same restaurant again, and then somebody just threw something in front of me, and I thought, oh, no, let me change. Some of us prefer more reliability, more consistency. So I am not going to say this is for everyone. But we all need a little bit of both. We need the surprise and we need the familiar. So for those of you who are coming more from the resistance side, see if anything here actually could be attractive to you, and what I would say is it's sweet, it's touching, it's inconsequential, it's low stakes. There's nothing really bad that can happen from it. At best, it's boring and it's tedious, but that's it. So there are many reasons why starting a conversation with somebody outside one's circle can be intimidating or unnecessary or annoying or just kind of deplete your mood. So I want to address that too. You can be more reserved, more shy. You can be, someone who doesn't always think that you know what to say, or you prefer to be a listener and a participant, or you're afraid of the rejection and the lack of response on the other side, or you've been out of practice after a year and a half of being isolated, or you feel that you don't have particularly much to add, and that actually often the small talk people talk to talk. So I want to put that out there because small talk, at the same time as we may not like it, it is an unavoidable part of life. And when it's done well, it is the thing that helps us bring those social muscles back to life. And this is a moment where we're going to need that bridge from small talk to deep talk. So I say for anyone who's struggling and wondering, so where do I start? Here are a few ideas of where I think you can begin. They're right in front of you. Every situation has a context, right? So you can draw from that context because it's the thing that you are sharing with the other person in that very moment. You're in a museum, start talking about the artwork. You're at a concert, you're standing on the street listening to buskers playing jazz or any music, you can talk about the very thing that you're listening to. You're at the market, you can ask about the produce that is right in front of you to someone who seems to know what they're choosing. I go to Chinatown many times and I always find myself asking someone who seems to know what all these vegetables are that I don't know but would love to try. Please educate me. Can you tell me? Can you share with me? And it's very, very rare that people don't want to share, to partake in this kind of situation. You're in a cafe, there's a menu. It's always easy to ask someone, what do you like on the menu? What do you typically take here? Why ask only the waiter? We can ask the other people who are actually, also guests in the place. And if you're shy or nervous or out of practice, just say so. It's been a while since I was to talk to people. I've been by myself for these last few months. I think this is a moment where there is a real license. But when I say this is a moment, I think it often is a moment to just say, it's been a while for me. I've been busy with things, or I've been away, or I've been immersed in something, and I'm out of practice. People have no problem saying they're out of practice when they haven't been at the gym for a while. So what's the difference, right? You're not the only person sometimes who doesn't know how to approach people. If people don't talk, it's not because they don't like you or don't want to say anything. It's sometimes because they actually are more similar to you. Flowing conversations doesn't come naturally for many people. And that's just an important thing to normalize and to realize, and especially because I think a lot of us are spending so much time in the phone. You used to be able to come out a while back, and somebody was smoking a cigarette, and you could talk about the cigarette or ask for a cigarette or offer a light. I had a friend who always had a lighter with her. She never actually smoked, but she had a lighter because she thought offering light was a wonderful way to start a conversation. So the phone is a real conversation stopper, actually. I mean, even people who have been conversations in the phone, but it's like the eyes are down, so you can't catch the glimpse that says, oh, possible opening right here. So number one is look for what is right in front of you, shared context. Number two, normalize if you're out of practice, if you're shy, if you're more reserved, normalize it. Number three, look for commonalities. Focus on questions that look for something that you may have in common with the other person, a place, an activity, an interest. Look for commonalities. You know, I was at this birthday last week, and actually wrote about it on social as well, because it was very interesting. My friend thanked us all, you know, lift a glass and talked about how important we were to her. But we, the guests, we were a small group, but we did not know each other. Many of us were close friends to her, but were all from different parts of her life. And so we did not know each other. The only thing we had in common was her. And so I suggested, I said, you know, we've been told that we matter and we are important, that we are here for her. Why don't we turn this around for a moment and we talk about what she means to us, what it makes us feel like to be important in her life. We flipped the table and we got to listen to the whole group talking about their relationship with her. And that was the common thread between all of us. And it was really beautiful because she sat in a pool of love. I basically described it as the eulogy you get when you're still alive and you can actually hear it and enjoy it and receive it. Number four, if you've looked at the commonalities, the flip side of that, which is equally valid, is embrace differences. If you think that you and the person with whom you're speaking live in very different worlds, use it as an opportunity to expand your point of view, to be curious, to find out about them. Just the basic questions of anything that can give you a glimpse into the world that they live in. You know, it's not about do you agree or don't you disagree about their beliefs, their values, their ideologies. It's just, what is the world that they live in? How does that world look like? How does that world act, think like, celebrate, grieve, all of it, you know? And understanding where someone is coming from, that's exactly the point. So these are some of the tips for my next blog. And I'm publishing it next week. So you make sure that you look for the link for the next blog at Esther Perel Official on Instagram and at Esther Perel on Facebook. And if you need some motivation, just think about what great openings small talk can lead to. So let me first look for a moment at what are some of the things that you wrote. You know, I love that nonverbal small talk when I'm stepping aside on the pavement and the other person steps the same way and a dance begins. And then we laugh and there's a connection. Yes, 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 yes. I have mermaid colored hair and people often stop me and tell me that they love my hair and smile. It's so heartwarming. Yeah, I have a friend who has purple hair. I mean, it is the perfect opening for small talk. Had a biking accident and strangers on the street stopped, took care of me, called the paramedics, gave me water, stored the bike. A circle of kindness, all strangers who befriended. While I was taking out the trash, a neighbor, the trash taking is a very good one. You know, taking the trash, taking the dog on a walk, all of those, you know, taking out a neighbor that I don't really know said hello and she started to cry and I offered her a hug. Her mother had passed away and she was feeling alone. I shared the secret of my son's paper airplane design with a complete stranger. Now we are friends and already met for drinks. I have always seen an elderly couple of neighbors and they are crazy about my dog. I love how our conversation passed from a simple hello to a full conversation and to know about their lives. The customer in front of me at IKEA grabbed my items by mistake at checkout, and a hilarious conversation ensued. I love that nonverbal small talk. Yeah, that's what I read before when I'm stepping on the sidewalk. I mean, that's it. You really you're capturing what I think is the essence of small talk as a bridge to deeper conversations, friendships, connections, less aloneness, less isolation, social nimbleness, all of that. So the great openings that small talk can lead to is really that. You can get a new job, you can find new relationships, you can get a promotion at work, you can get great recommendations for places that you've never been to. Or you can use my motivation. My own parents, they used to come visit me. They were in their 80s. They arrived in New York, and they would walk to Washington Square. And then they would sit on a bench. They barely spoke English. My father, none, my mother, a little. And then they would listen for where they hear French, Haitian, Creole, Senegalese, France, Switzerland, Quebec, whatever French accent they could hear. And then they'd start talking to the people and basically ask them questions: where they're from, when did they arrive, why this neighborhood, what do they think about it, where do they go? And systematically they would come back with all kinds of suggestions of places to go, things to get that I knew absolutely nothing about. And they held court in the middle of the park. And while I at that time used to think small talk, tedious, superficial, my parents really were a proof of how important it actually is. And, many times people would accompany them and walk back with them to the house. I mean, and, it wasn't just that my parents felt good about it and they felt like they were not just strangers who can't talk to anyone. I know that the people who they talked to were those people who then had that smile on the face. It's like that elderly couple you describe when you are walking with your dog, and at first you said hello, and then slowly it developed in ongoing conversations. And I think my parents were right. Even when small talk is low stakes or inconsequential, there's something really nice about two very different strangers that are passing time together and engaging in a dance, which is exactly what you described when you talked about the pavement, trying to find out something in common. So go out in the world, engage, try out that small talk. And as always, thank you for joining Letters from Esther live, and subscribe and like. Bye-bye.